recorded?
This meeting is being recorded.
Yes. All right. So this is welcome everybody to the first of a series of classes on Buddhist chanting. This is actually a year-long a class series, and I'll talk about the syllabus, the stuff that we're going to go over in that year. But basically, you know, we're going to be talking about different chanting. But every time that we meet, we're going to begin with a particular chant. Oh, here's Elizabeth. We're going to begin with the Great Dharani, which, let's see if I have that somewhere. I say that, but then now I'm wondering, where do I have that recording stashed? Oh yeah, I think I know where it is. Let me bring it up. And so the recording that I'm going to play is a video, and the video has the words that is the syllables spelled out on the video. And I say that, but now I'm almost positive I can find it. Let's see. Yes, here we go. Not that one. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and ask everybody to go on mute. Now, so ideally, the ideal thing is for you to chant along as we're doing this. Now, unfortunately, we can't chant in such a way that everybody gets to hear everybody else in this. The electrons don't move fast enough for us to be able to do that, basically. So when one person is chanting, it won't be in sync, and so and also Zoom tends to think that only one person should be talking at a time, so people will fade in and out. Anyway, it's a mess if we try to chant together. But we can still kind of chant together. I can play this video, and we listen to the video. The words to the chant, or the syllables to chant, are right there on the screen, and so to the whatever your comfort level is, just chant along out loud or to yourself or whatever. Okay, as we do this, and let's see. Here it is. Oh, good. Okay, so everyone can see my screen now, correct? The nice. I think that's a redbud tree picture that Daniela took at Furnace Mountain. Everyone sees that, correct? And so I'm going to mute myself now and just play the video, and you should now hear the chanting momentarily. Sorry, I must have done something stupid with that video, because now it's not showing the it's supposed to show the let's try this one. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay, here we go. Okay. So actually now I am gonna share my screen again. I'm gonna show one slide that has some like introductory, preliminary stuff that everybody should see. But then as soon as I'm done kind of talking about that for a few minutes, I'm gonna stop and ask if there's any initial questions or things that people want to raise or ask about or talk about. But let me put up this first slide before I. Here it is. And okay, so uh, this is the first class, and okay, first of all, I want to draw your attention to this part over here, down here in the little blue box. This is the chants that we are going to do. We're going to spend 2 months on each chant. So it's now March. So we're going to spend March and April on the Jijang Bosal chant. And we're going to spend 2 months after that on the Homage to the Three Jewels chant. Then we're going to spend 2 months on the 10-phrase Kanon Sutra, the Kanzeyo Namu Butsu chant. Then we'll spend 2 months on the Heart Sutra, 2 months on the Great Dharani, and the final 2 months on Kwanzaa Bosal chanting. There's a lot of overlap between Jijang Bosal and Kwanzaa Bosal chanting, but there's also a lot in both of those. So I think it'll be good to kind of hit these two chants at the beginning and the end. This is the schedule that we'll follow. We'll meet on the first and third Tuesday of each month, this being the first Tuesday of March. We'll start at 7. We'll have 1 35-minute session, followed by a 5-minute break, and then a second 35-minute session ending at 8:15. And I don't have anywhere to go, folks. So if there's still interest and we're still talking at that time, I want to respect people's time. And so I know people have to schedule and that other people may have things to do. And there may be, Tuesday nights when I have somewhere where I have to go. But this might not be a really hard break, but sometimes it certainly could be. And if you have to leave at this time, well, so at the very end, just so I should clarify that. At the very end, we will, every time we meet, we will chant the Great Dharani at the beginning. And then at the end of the second session, we will chant the chant that we're currently working on. So at the end of tonight's session, we will do the Jijang Bosal chant at the end. And yeah, all right. So there's more on this slide, but right now I want to just ask if there is at this time anybody have any questions or anything you want to bring up or ask about or like that. Everybody know where you are? Now, I don't expect everyone to already be familiar with Jijang Bosal chanting necessarily, and this class is also being recorded, so there may be some people who are completely unfamiliar with Jijang Bosal chanting. So I am, please feel free to break in and ask questions, or to ask me to slow down or repeat something or whatever, if that arises. But I'm going to start explaining Jijang Bosal chanting now. So, first of all, Jijang Bosal is a bodhisattva. And in thinking about how to present this class, I almost went down the rabbit hole, which is a very interesting rabbit hole of giving a long, discussion about what is a bodhisattva. And of course, that's a really good question. And it's kind of inevitable and unavoidable in this. But I'm going to kind of talk around it. And to tell you the truth, there are lots of different little one sentence or even one paragraph definitions of what a bodhisattva is. but you have to really meet with this idea over and over and over again. See that there are lots of different ways of seeing it, looking at it, um, and different people have different ideas about what's most important. Um, uh, so we'll just say Jijang Bosal is a bodhisattva, okay? And but he's well, and in fact, let's see. At one point, we will get to that. He is not just a bodhisattva; he's one of the great bodhisattvas. And traditionally in Buddhism, especially in Korean Buddhism, there are four great bodhisattvas in particular, and that is something we'll talk about more specifically in a minute. Um, One of the main things that Jijang Bosal, so Bosal, so you know, Bosal is another way of saying bodhisattva. Okay, so when we say Jijang Bosal, it's the same thing as Jijang Bodhisattva. And a major part of Jijang Bosal's job uh, is to help people who are going through what's known as the middle existence. Now, some people are familiar with this idea of middle existence through its Tibetan terminology, which is Bardo. This is an idea that is very broadly uh, uh, found throughout all the different schools of Buddhism, um, not just Tibetan Buddhism, not just Mahayana Buddhism, but basically it's the time between lifetimes, and it's considered to be very important. Um, uh, and Let's see. Yeah. So in the Korean tradition, what the Tibetans call Bardo is called Jungyu, but it means the same thing. This character right here literally means middle, in the middle, and this character right here literally means exist or existence. I'll even zoom in on that a little bit just because I can. All right. So this is the middle existence. It's literally what these two characters, and this is just how it's pronounced in Korean, spelled out the way Koreans spell Jung Yu. All right. Um, Now, as soon as you start talking about the period between lifetimes, or middle existences, or bardos, or whatever, it's easy to get into um, the theoretical, speculative. Not that that's not very interesting and can be useful, but that's not really what we're going to be doing. I mean, this is a class on chanting. Chanting is a practice. This particular chant that we're starting with does have to do with this great bodhisattva who helps people during the transition between lifetimes. And in particular, so that while Jijang Bosal is helping someone who has died, uh, the people who didn't die, that is, the loved ones of the person who has died, they're the ones doing the chanting. Um, and so, in a very practical sense, this is a way that Buddhists respond to death by chanting to Jijang Bosal. And that's I would like to keep the emphasis there, but at the same time, it's inevitable for people to want to think about, ask about, talk about um, what happens to us when we die. Well, in this class, we're not going to give any definitive answers to that, but it certainly is. I mean, it's fair game. If people want to bring that up, look into it, um, think about it, talk about it. Uh, as long as we all agree that we're not going to try to come to any definite, conclusive answers about that, and also as long as we all agree that we're not going to argue about it. Anyway, uh, so this where I'm at right now, that all the different schools of Buddhism, all the different varieties and schools and sects and groups and whatever, all accept that there is this middle existence between lifetimes. And in Mahayana Buddhism, including all the different forms of Buddhism throughout East Asia, China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, as well as all the different forms of Buddhism in Central Asia, Tibet, and Mongolia, so forth. Um, they all accept that you can pray to help people during this middle existence, and in particular, many in East Asia, in Korea in particular, the belief is that you can help people who are going through this middle existence by praying to, chanting to Jijang Bosal. And so Zen Master Sung San was not, who was the one who taught his students this chant. The reason why I know this chant is because I learned it from Zen Master Degak, and he learned it from Zen Master Sung San. Um, and so Zen Master Sung San wasn't interested in, forcing ideas about Korean Buddhism on people, but he did think it was important for people to learn to do this practice and to associate this practice with how we respond um, to death. Now, oh, okay. So enough about middle existences and things like that, because we're actually here to talk about the chant itself. And this is a very nice calligraphy over here. I say very nice, somewhat facetiously. This calligraphy is kind of a mess. It's calligraphy by a great Japanese Zen master, Hakuin, and it literally means prostrate to Jizo, Thou Lord Bodhisattva. And here's the Chinese characters. So okay, you cannot make out these Chinese characters. I challenge anyone to tell me to go through this, because I know what it's supposed to be down here. These are the actual characters that say Namu Jizo Ganshu Bosatsu. Somehow it's in there, but anyway, the Hakuin was very interested in Jizo Bodhisattva, and Jizo is the Japanese name. Jijang is the Korean name. All right, in which we're going to talk about the different names right now. So the chant begins like this, and in fact, again, I'm going to periodically I will just say, does anybody have any questions or anybody want to say anything before I go on to something? Because what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to play the beginning of the chant before talking about it more. I want you to, the purpose of this is to learn the chant. And shall I do that now? I have this one here. I know where it is. Let's see. Try. Oh, yeah, good. All right. So everybody can see my screen now, right? So I'm just going to play like the first few minutes of this chant, which has the opening lines. Now I'm gonna leave this up here. I just want to explain to you what you're looking at on the screen. Okay, so there's 3 groups of 3 lines, right? And the bottom line in each group of 3 is what you actually chant. It's spelled out in a way that English speaking people can make out the sounds. Namu, Nambang, Hwaju, Jijang Bosal. Namu, Yumyong, Gyoju, Jijang Bosal. Namu, Daewon, Bonjon, Jijang Bosal. Now, what's this other stuff? Okay, so the other stuff is what we are spelling out here in the third line is the English approximation of the Korean pronunciation, which is what's up on the second line. And what the Korean pronunciation is it's the Korean pronunciation of these Chinese characters that are up on the first line. And so one of the goals of this class is to help people to better understand what it is that they're chanting when they're chanting. And so you don't have to learn Chinese or learn Korean, but you do have to build up a little bit of comfort level with looking at it, and then finding out what these, in particular, what these funny characters up on top mean. And so that's what we're going to talk about. What does Namu, Nambang, Hwaju, Jijang Bosal mean? Hopefully it means something good, right? But what is the what is the meaning? And we're not going to dig down real deep into any sort of deep. Well, I mean, there's a little bit of deep depth to it, but we're not going to pursue it too far. So let me go back to oh yeah, here we go. Right, now you can see the PowerPoint slide now, correct? All right, so Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal. First line means, okay, well, we can go, each line starts with Namu, which means bow to. Okay, I'm going to go over that a little bit more in the next slide. But Zen Master Sung San would often translate this as become one with. And become one with is a really good way of understanding what it really means to bow to something. At the same time, though, bowing still means bow. But understanding what does this mean means really in this chant, it means you and Jijang Bosal are not separate. So we bow to Nambang. What is Nambang? So Nambang means southern direction. Hwaju means the Lord of Transformation. We'll go over a little bit more. And then Jijang Bosal means Jijang Bosal, this bodhisattva. That's the name of this bodhisattva. Oh, look at this. I made a huge mistake on this slide. Yeah. So in my haste, I didn't actually. I just copy and pasted this line 3 times. See that? See what I did there? But we'll correct that. And when I post these slides, either tonight or tomorrow, so when the recording of this class is posted, there'll be a copy of the slides posted electronically, in the description on the YouTube video, and you could download it. And it will have so this is actually Yumyong Goju. Means Yumyong is very interesting. This is the dark realms, and Gyoju means basically it's another way of saying great teacher, Jijang Bosal. And Namu Daewon means great vows, and Bonjon is yet another way of saying great teacher, Jijang Bosal. And then after that, there's a 4th line where we just basically tie together all these things that we just said about Jijang Bosal into one line: Namu Nambang Hwaju Yumyong Goju Daewon Bonjon. And then that's followed by what's often considered to be, what is kind of the meat of the chant, where we recite Jijang Bosal's name over and over again. But I do want to say one thing about the beginning. So So the beginning, as you noticed, was very kind of long and ponderous and slow and had a very kind of complicated melody. It's actually a little difficult to chant. Now it's kind of nice to learn. It can be fun to learn that, to chant it with others. It sounds really cool once you get the hang of it. But it isn't completely necessary. You can just say Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal and then bow. So when you say anytime there's a line that begins with Namu, at the end of that line you should bow. So Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal, Namu Yu Myung Gyoju Jijang Bosal, Namu Dewan Bonjon Jijang Bosal, as opposed to Namu Nambang, etc., which takes, well, I mean, for one thing, it just takes a lot longer to chant it that way. All right. Oh yeah. All right. So Namu is the Sino-Korean. Sino-Korean meaning it's the way Korean people pronounce the Chinese. It's Chinese as pronounced by Koreans. It's the Sino-Korean pronunciation of the Sanskrit Namo, which is, if you know Devanagari. Anybody here know Devanagari? I don't. I know very, very little bit of it. I started to learn Devanagari, and then I learned about it. As soon as you learn all of the basic letters of Devanagari, then the next thing you learn after that is Sandhi, and that's when I gave up. Sandhi is how all of the letters change when you start putting them together to make actual words. Yeah, I gave up at that point. Anyway, but oh yeah. So this in Devanagari is written like this by people in East Asia. And these two characters, I said Sino-Korean, so there's Sino-Korean, there's Japanese, there's Sino-Japanese, there's Sino-Vietnamese, and then of course there's Chinese as it is pronounced by actual Chinese people, and actually they pronounce it differently in different regions. And China is a huge country. There are different dialects, but everybody pronounces it more or less Namo or Namu. And it means to bow down. It has the same root as the word namaste, which most people know. Namaste means namaste. It's a greeting, but it's a greeting. It's a greeting of showing respect, and yeah. As I said before, Zen Master Sung San would say that it means to become one with, uh, and Zen Master Sung San was pretty insistent that you had to bow. If you're going to practice Zen, you have to be able to bow, even though people don't necessarily like bowing. Now, if you know a little bit about Chinese characters, you might know that these two characters do not mean bow down to. They actually have very clear meanings. This first character means south, and the second character is the famous mu. So it means south, no. And so in this case, these two characters are being used for their sound. So just like in English, when we write Namo, Namo doesn't mean in English bow down to. We're just sounding out the sound using our own letters, just as the Chinese people sound out what it sounds like using their characters. Now the next two syllables in the first line are Nambang. Now here in Nambang, the characters are being used for their meaning, and in this case, Nambang means southern region, and so why southern region? Because the place where we live, the place where human beings live, which we like to call the planet Earth. In Buddhist cosmology, it's called Jambudvipa. And it is, so Jambudvipa is a very interesting name for our planet. It's named after the tree that the Buddha sat under while he learned how to meditate. Actually, he didn't learn how to meditate there. He just spontaneously entered into meditation while sitting under the jambu tree. The jambu tree is not the same as the Bodhi tree. The jambu tree is a tree that the Buddha sat under while he was still Siddhartha, while he was still fairly young. And when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he remembered. He had a clear memory of this spontaneous experience that he had had of a very peaceful and a very pleasant form of meditation that he experienced sitting under the jambu tree. And and the jambu tree is what our part of the universe is named after, Jambudvipa, in Buddhism because of that. And uh, but for, in it's considered to be south of Mount Meru, which is um, the great cosmic mountain at the center of our part of the universe. And in the Ksitigarbha Sutra, now Ksitigarbha here is the Sanskrit name for Jijang Bosal. Um, and so when we refer to the sutra, which is written in Sanskrit, usually it will be referred to as the Ksitigarbha Sutra. Um, in that sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha explains that that after he dies, after his parinirvana, um, and between that time when he dies and the time when the future Buddha Maitreya comes, and this time period is sometimes called the time with no Buddha, that Jijang Bosal is the Bodhisattva primarily in charge of taking care of us, human beings in the southern region. And so that's why we refer to Jijang Bosal as the southern region Lord. Let's see. Now it's 7:34. We're going to take a 5-minute break at this point, and come back at 7:40. Okay. I'm going to put a timer up on the screen. So Welcome back, everyone. Well, almost everyone. So at this point, has anything been stirred up or knocked loose or anything in anyone's mind to ask about? Or it looks like something's been knocked loose in Joe's mind. Okay.
Oh yeah. With everything else that's been knocked loose for years,
Uh-huh.
I had to go out and do a real quick internet search of that calligraphy scroll
Uh-huh.
and to uh, look at the kanji or the
Uh-huh.
uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, I couldn't. I think a lot of it's overlapped and squiggled off to the
I know.
sides.
Well, yeah. It's very artistic.
But when you're that hakuin, you're allowed to do it.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is generally the case. I mean, if well, and it's not just with great calligraphers. I mean, Chinese handwriting is often difficult to read from one person to another.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's interesting. It sort of um, made me interested because oftentimes you will see the calligraphy scrolls for the Namu Amida.
Hmm. Yeah.
I've never seen one for Jijang Bosal.
Yeah.
Nice.
Uh, Anything else? So we can go. So we'll go on. We've got 2 months to cover this one chant. Okay. So before I plunge forth and going into, so one of the things that we'll do in this class is go through the chants in fairly, well, I mean, I wouldn't say great detail, but we will be going through them line by line and often syllable by syllable. Now, the point is not to like memorize all of this or whatever, but just to, um, for one thing, to see this, to see what's going on in these chants, and to have some place to come back to look to if you want to look into it further, um, uh, and to so to help people to have an idea of what it is that we're chanting, as a encouragement to do the chanting. Um, and so in that spirit, I just want to bring up, I just want to kind of, there we go, good. So there's two things that you really need. One is that recording of the chant, uh, which is a little different from the recordings that I've put together before. Uh, the one that I was showing, um, when we were going through the first 3 lines, has these three, um, the Chinese, the Korean, and the phonetically spelled out English, for each line, and so I want everybody to have that. So I've written out a Word file that has the whole chant spelled out like that, and also it has the sections of the chant labeled. Which we'll learn about as we're going through it. So I'm going to also put this in the um, description of the video on YouTube, and so you can download that. This is a good thing to look at while we're talking about this chant in the class, so you can remember where we are, and you don't really. And so this is a good thing to have to learn the chant. Um, you can learn the chant using the video. That's a good way to do it. I really like having recordings of chants that display the words in time with the recording. It makes it, at least for me, it makes it easier to learn. Also, here's a little trick. Um, on YouTube, you can easily manipulate the speed of a chant. So while you're learning it, you might want to slow it down at some points, or if you can't make out what it is, You can slow it down. But once you start to learn the chant, you can speed it up. And because personally, when I chant on my own, I usually chant fairly fast. Um, not necessarily because I'm in a hurry, but because that just seems very natural to me. When people are chanting together, there's often you often want to take into consideration that some people know the chants really well, some people don't know the chants hardly at all. You want to do it in a way that makes it easy for people to chant along. Um, and often when chants are recorded, which isn't the case with this recording, but often when they're recorded to help people to learn, and so you do them intentionally slowly for people to learn. So those are all kind of justifications for speeding up a chant a little bit while you're listening to it. Um, but so if you have the video of the chant to chant along with, and when you kind of get the hang of it, one way of testing yourself is to try to chant it without the recording. The recording kind of has the tune and the rhythm, which is very helpful. When you don't have that prompting and you're just looking at the words, then you find out whether you've really learned it well. And then, of course, the next step is to try to chant it without looking at the the cheat sheet at all. Basically, that's what this is here. This is a cheat sheet for learning the chant. It's a cheat sheet that also includes the Korean and the Chinese. So in addition to being a cheat sheet, it's also a tool that you can use. You can take any of these characters in here, whether the Chinese characters or the Korean characters, and you can do Google searches on them. Which you see, am I plugged in? I want to make sure that I'm about to lose power. There we go. I just saw my screen dim a little bit, and I'm very grateful to my screen for doing that, because usually it just goes blank, like without any warning, when I'm not plugged in, when I forgot to plug in. Anyway, so yeah, with this sheet, this is a Word document that you can download directly from the description on the YouTube video when I posted that. With this and the YouTube video itself, those are the two main tools that you can use to actually learn the chant. And then while you're learning the chant, it's good to learn what it is that you're chanting. So I'm going to continue on with that for a little while longer. I think we've covered. Let's see now. Go back into slideshow mode. Oops. I didn't really mean to go back that far. There we go. All right. Oh, okay. All right. So we've covered this much. I talked about why Jijang Bosal is referred to as being in charge of the southern region, and what the southern region is. That's where we are. That's Jambudvipa. Hwaju is the very next part of the first line. So the whole first line again goes Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal. Hwaju, this is Hwaju written out in the Chinese characters. This first character means transformation, and the second character means Lord or Master. And so this means Jijang Bosal is the master of transformation. Now this, if you try to find out what does this master of transformation or Lord of transformation really refer to, and it's a very general appellation. I like the word appellation. There's a lot of syllables in it. Basically means the same thing as epithet. Epithet is another word. Buddhism has lots of appellations and epithets. All the Buddhas and all the Bodhisattvas, they have different appellations and epithets. And this actually, Hwaju, this Lord of Transformation, is a very popular one. And it can be applied to any Buddha or Bodhisattva. Because, of course, the whole purpose of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is to help us to change. That's their job. But in the case of Jijang Bosal, it's especially appropriate because he is the one who guides us when we're going through not only the transformation from one lifetime to the next, but this is something that Zen Master Basui, the great Japanese Zen master, said. You know, if he said about Jijang Bosal, he said, if he can't help you here, he can't help you there either. So you can call upon Jijang Bosal. Basically saying you don't have to wait until you're dead. All right, you can call upon Jijang Bosal to help you now. All right, and so that's the first line: Namu, Nambang, Huaju, Jijang Bosal. And Jijang Bosal is the last four syllables of each of the first three lines. And this is the Chinese, so Jijang, or it's in Mandarin Chinese, it's pronounced something more like Di Zang, but I cannot pronounce Mandarin, so don't quote me on that. And then this is Bosal. This is just the Chinese way of writing Bodhisattva. This word Dizang, which is the Chinese translation of the Sanskrit Ksitigarbha, means something like earth store. So the first part means earth. Kshiti. Garbha means something like a store or treasury or womb. So the Buddha nature, what we refer to as Buddha nature in English, is originally in Sanskrit Tathagata Garbha. Garbha meaning the basically the place where Buddhas come from. Anyway, so Bosal. All right. And this is a nice quote from the Ksitigarbha Sutra, just re-emphasizing what I was saying before. In the future, there may be virtuous men or women who after hearing this Bodhisattva's name, say praises, pay homage, recite his name, make offerings, or even paint, carve, or mold his images. They will have hundreds of consecutive rebirths into the 33 heavens and will never fall into the suffering realms, hell, hungry ghosts, or animals. So this is just this is kind of the sunny side of Jijang Bosal's role, which is important to emphasize this, but Jijang Bosal is primarily concerned with helping people who are struggling, helping people who are having trouble, and this is the payoff that you can reap from that. Let me see. All right, so and here is the first three lines again with all the Chinese, all the Korean spelled out, and then the translation, the first one being Namu, Nambang, Huaju, Jijang Bosal. This is the South Direction Transformation Lord. Namu, Yumyong, Gyoju, Jijang Bosal, the Dark Realm Teacher Master. So these two characters here are pretty interesting. Dark Realms, the Teacher Master. And then the third line, Namu Dewan Bonjon, Jijang Bosal, Great Vows, Root Venerated One. And that's just to give you more, if you didn't have enough on the first three lines, there's a little more. So the first line emphasizes Namu, Nambang, Huaju, Jijang Bosal, emphasizes Jijang Bosal's role as the protector of sentient beings here in Jambudvipa during the time without a Buddha. The second line emphasizes Jijang Bosal's role as the guide who helps sentient beings as they navigate the Dark Realm. And the Dark Realm can refer either to this middle existence, where one is transmigrating from one lifetime to the next, or it can refer more darkly to the hell realms specifically, or the hell realms and the hungry ghost realms. And Jijang Bosal is especially committed to those who have the kind of karma that otherwise results in one being reborn in a hell realm or a hungry ghost realm. And in fact, Jijang Bosal's primary vow, which is what we're going to talk about in the next line, but his primary vow is to save all beings in the hell realms. But as Basui said, if he can't help you here, he can't help you there either. So just because I really like that line from Basui. You don't have to wait until you're in hell to call on Jijang Bosal. That's the important thing. The third line, Namu Dewan Bonjon Jijang Bosal. This emphasizes Jijang Bosal's role as the Bodhisattva of great vows. And here he is being portrayed as one of the 4 great bodhisattvas. Now, the next chant that we're going to do in this class, 2 months from now, we will be talking about the homage to the 3 jewels. And part of the homage to the 3 jewels chant is paying homage to the 4 great bodhisattvas, who are Manjushri Bodhisattva, who's referred to as Deji Muntsusari Bosal. He's the Bodhisattva of great wisdom. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, who is the Bodhisattva of great practice. Deheng Bohyun Bosal. Kwansin Bosal, or Avalokiteshvara, who is the Bodhisattva of great compassion. Debi Kwanseum Bosal. And Jijang Bosal, the Bodhisattva of great vows. Dewan Bonjon Jijang Bosal. Now, it's interesting to say, that that Jijang Bosal is the Bodhisattva of great vows. All Bodhisattvas take great vows. Kwansin Bosal is the Bodhisattva of great compassion. All Bodhisattvas have great compassion. Samantabhadra is the Bodhisattva of great practice. All Bodhisattvas are dedicated to great practice. And of course, all Bodhisattvas cultivate wisdom as well. Nevertheless, these 4 Bodhisattvas have been kind of selected as is the main representatives for these 4. It isn't so much the 4 bodhisattvas that are really being focused upon as these 4 things that these bodhisattvas are cultivating. This is pointing out to us that we need great vows, we need great compassion, we need strong practice, and we need to cultivate wisdom. Because I used to drive by a golf course on my way to work, and they used to have a sign out there that said, "If Tiger Woods needs to practice, so do you." So if Jijang Bosal and Kwansin Bosal and Samantabhadra and Manjushri need to work on all these 4 things, then so do we, because this is what they're working on, and they're setting an example for us. Now, so the next part of the chant, and let's see, yeah. So in the next part of the chant, so the chant goes, Namu Nambang Hwaju Jijang Bosal, Namu Yumyong Gyoju Jijang Bosal, Namu Dewan Bonchon Jijang Bosal, Namu Nambang Hwaju Yumyong Gyoju Dewan Bonchon Jijang Bosal. So that's the beginning of the chant. That's kind of the invocation of Jijang Bosal. And then having done that, then the chant becomes a repetition of the name Jijang Bosal. Jijang Bosal, Jijang Bosal, Jijang Bosal, Jijang Bosal. And this kind of chanting is very popular. It's also very easy, right? So chanting in general is very easy. It's much easier than sitting meditation. Chanting meditation is much easier than sitting meditation. The easiest kind of chanting meditation is to just repeat something very simple over and over and over again. Although after a while that becomes not so easy. Actually, once you've done it for 5 minutes, it no longer seems so easy, in my opinion, to repeat something over and over and over again, which is one of the reasons why we have this chant. So what you can do with this chant, if you really want to venerate and pray to Jijang Bosal, then you should repeat his name many, many times. But if you do it in the context of this chant, then it actually helps you to do that a little bit, helps you to break it up by not just repeating his name over and over again. Which there are YouTube videos, and I will link to one or two of them in the description to this video, of people repeating the name of a Buddha or Bodhisattva for hours, and it's a pretty impressive practice to be able to do that. So Zen Master Sung San taught, oops. All right. Zen Master Sung San taught Namu Amida Bull chanting. So Namu Amida Bull chanting, and Joe actually mentioned Namu Amida Bull. So Amida Bull in Korean Buddhism is Amitabha. And so the practice of what's often called, and I'll get to the terminology down here in this paragraph, but what's often called Yum-Bull practice is often specifically associated with Amitabha. But in fact, Zen Master Sung San taught his students not only Namu Amida Bull chanting, but also Kwanzaa Bosal chanting. And Kwanzaa Bosal chanting was probably the one that he emphasized the most, and that is most popular and most commonly done by his students. He also taught his students Jijang Bosal chanting as well, and with the specific encouragement that this is a chant to do when people have died. And so in our group, our local sitting group here in Rockville, back when we used to meet in person, our practice was always to chant Kwanzaa Bosal chanting when we met, except if someone in the group had someone who had died. And then we would chant for 49 days. So for the next 7 weeks, we would do Jijang Bosal chanting for that person who had died. And we ended up doing a lot of Jijang Bosal chanting because people die, right? Yeah, and in addition, there's also Sogamuni Bull chanting. I mean, if you're going to chant to Amitabha and Kwanzaa Bosal and Jijang Bosal, shouldn't Shakyamuni Buddha get some chanting too, right? So there's Sogamuni Bull chanting, and Sogamuni Bull chanting is usually specifically associated with Shakyamuni's birthday. There's a specific day in the lunar Buddhist calendar that's considered to be Shakyamuni Buddha's birthday. But in addition to those 4 chants, there's many more. There's people chant to Maitreya Buddha, Mirak Jonbul. People chant Mirak Jonbul, Mirak Jonbul, Mirak Jonbul. People chant to the Medicine Buddha, Yaksa Yodebul, Yaksa Yodebul. And people also chant to the Mountain Spirit. Now, so there's like beings that are not necessarily Buddhists, but are more Korean shamanic deities that are very popular for Koreans to chant to, and even though one might think of these as non-Buddhists, Buddhists do this kind of chanting. Buddhists chant to the Mountain Spirit and to the 7 stars, Chilsang, as well. And so this kind of chanting is often referred to as Yum-Bul. Yum-Bul, which is the Korean pronunciation of in Chinese. Again, I don't speak Mandarin, but it's pronounced something like Nyanfo. In Japanese, I don't speak Japanese, but Japanese is fairly easy to pronounce. Nembutsu is how it's pronounced in Japanese. Very often people know of it by this name because it's a very popular practice in Japanese Buddhism. But Yumble has all kinds of different meanings. Sometimes it just means chanting. So the Choge order in Korea, which is the largest Buddhist group in Korea, they have a committee that is in charge of teaching and promoting the practice of chanting. And they make recordings. They make recordings of the chants and send them out to people. And they actually have instructors who go around to different temples around Korea and show people how to chant, teach chanting. And they're called the Yeonbol Committee. Um, and they don't just do Namu Amida Bull chanting. They do all the chants. Um, and this word Yeonbol originally just means mindfulness of Buddha, and it's a very ancient Buddhist teaching. And if you so it's sometimes it's called mindfulness of Buddha, sometimes it's called recollection of Buddha. When you see the term a recollection of Buddha, then you may know about a traditional Buddhist teaching called the Six Recollections, which are six mindfulness practices that are associated with the earliest Buddhist teachings. These are mindfulness of Buddha, mindfulness of Dharma, mindfulness of Sangha, the three jewels, of course, mindfulness of virtue, mindfulness of generosity, and mindfulness of the devas. So these are the six recollections that are included in the earliest Buddhist teachings, and often though they're extended to 10 recollections, which are mindfulness of death, mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of the body, and mindfulness of peace or stillness. And of course, one of the ones that's the most famous today is mindfulness of breath. Breath mindfulness is what people often think of when they think of mindfulness. But these are all mindfulness practices. And so when you're doing any kind of chanting, it's actually it is a mindfulness practice. Let's see. So we're going to have to stop in a minute so we can do the chanting at the end. So I am going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, ask for questions, comments, anything at this point before we end with doing this whole chant together. As our ending ceremony. Okay, so sometime tomorrow, I will have posted on YouTube the recording of this video, and in that recording there will also be a link to the video that I consider to be basically the training video for the chant. There will also be a copy of this cheat sheet that I have that you can use, and between the video and the cheat sheet, you should be able to learn this chant. And yeah, like that. So now we'll do the chant together. It's almost 8 minutes long. So I have just enough time to get it in before we. Sorry. Here we go. Good. Everyone can now see my screen, right? With the Jijang Bosal Chanting video up there. Okay, good.
Jijang Bosal, 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 Jijang Bosal. Yorok Chanting Om Bharamani Dhani Sabaha Om Bharamani Dhani Sabaha Om Bharamani Dhani Sabaha Om Shunturjino no Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Om Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Om Mamoka Salvadara Sadaya Shive Hum Sosotegyo Sandarani Nam Samanda Motanam Abaraji Harasa Sananam Danyata Om Kaka Kai Kai Hum Hum Avara Avara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Namu Samanda Motanam Abaraji Hadasa Sananam Danyata Om Kaka Kai Kai Hum Hum Abara Abara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Namu Samanda Motanam Abaraji Hadasa Sadanam Danyata Om Kaka Kai Kai Hum Hum Abara Abara Bara 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 Jita Jita Jiri Jiri Pada Pada Sanjiga Shiriye Sabaha Bobo Jino Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Om Horo Horo Saya Roke Sabaha Bobo Nyang Jino Om Samara Samara Mimara Charma Jagora Bara Om Samara Samara Mimara Charma 지대해 중수가운진 고공가량 공가에 무능진솔 불도
So that's it. Thanks everybody for coming. And if anybody wants to ask questions or discuss anything further, that's cool. But you all are, should we just end? Are we done? Are we good? Okay. So I hope to see you all. So this class meets first and third Tuesday of the month. Hope to see you all in 2 weeks, or if not, before then. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thanks.